Okay, so it seems like a tiny little change, but it is a gigantic change. Seriously, especially for PIMOs. So please don't take this lightly. Watch this video and pay attention, because this is a game changer for Jehovah's Witnesses, especially those who are awake. To give you a little background, anybody who was marked in the congregation, what does that mean, marked? Somebody who was marked was a person who didn't really commit a sin, but was kind of on the borderline. Somebody who was dating an unbeliever, or maybe drank a little bit too much, but not enough to consider to be a sin. And the brothers would talk to him, and then if he didn't change his things the way he was doing, then they would give a talk. We usually heard it as congregation needs. And there's one person in the congregation that we're supposed to magically know who they're talking about, because they would not announce the person's name. And then later on, nobody knew when this person was unmarked. Well, technically, when we noticed that the elders started associating with that person outside of the congregation in a social gatherings, then and only then we would we would understand that, oh, this person is no longer marked, which was absolutely ridiculous, and most Jehovah's Witnesses had no idea about this arrangement, and this is why most people didn't pay attention much to it. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is because there is a major change. Previously, if somebody was sharing any kind of information that was contrary to what the governing body would suggest, if somebody had their own thoughts, their own understandings, or different view of doctrine, we all know that was considered divisive talk. That was considered a talk that would cause divisions in the congregation. And a divisive talk could not be possibly tolerated in the congregation, and that person had to be removed or disfellowshipped, if not repentant. So that person would have a judicial committee, and on the judicial committee, they would ask him, do you think this is true? Do you believe in this? And if the person said no, that would be considered divisive talk. And with the divisive talk, that person would have been considered an apostate, and they would be disfellowshipped, or today they would be removed. Now they're changing this. They're changing this. So watch this. This is written in the August 2024 Questions for Readers Watchtower. And it says this, which means it will not be studied on Sunday. Only very few Jehovah's Witnesses will actually read this. And it says this: today, if we notice a fellow Christian who shows such a disobedient spirit, and there is a little star next to that, what does it mean to have a disobedient spirit? For example, a fellow Christian might refuse to work to support himself, although able, might insist on courting an unbeliever, or might spread divisive talk or harmful gossip. Here it is, in the fine print, the questions for readers, a tiny little mention that if somebody spreads a divisive talk, we will make a personal decision not to associate with him for social occasions or recreation. Now, listen to me carefully right now. First of all, this whole sentence is insane. It says this: today, if we notice a fellow Christian who shows such a disobedient spirit, we will make a personal decision not to associate with him for social occasions or recreation. How can you make a personal decision when they're telling you you're making a personal decision not to associate with somebody? Personal decision is like you associate or you don't associate. But here they're telling you it is your decision not to associate with that person who spreads a divisive talk. What the heck? Why the change? I'll tell you why the change. When you go and you want to buy a condominium, for example, and there is a huge billboard and it says, you can buy this apartments over here starting at $200,000, with the tiny little star right next to the price. And then in a fine print that nobody reads, or it's almost impossible to read, a lawyer wrote these words underneath: there is only one unit at 200,000 and the rest is 500 and more. But the one is a little studio that it's facing the neighbor's wall and it's so small a cat cannot fit in there. Basically, they're creating something that it's not a lie, but for advertising purposes, they creating those billboards. So a person viewing this thinks one thing, but the reality is a little bit different, but they're technically not lying. So this is why they have the fine print written by lawyers. This is exactly the same thing. This fine print was written by a lawyer. Why? Because they're losing. They lost in Norway, and they're going to be sued a lot more in other countries for freedom of speech and freedom of religion. With this little fine print that they did this here in the Watchtower, now they get to go to court and they get to say, we no longer disfellowship people if they have a different viewpoint. We no longer remove them from the congregation if they have a different viewpoint. They're allowed to. We're not persecuting them. We actually have an arrangement now that it's totally different. Now, it is a personal decision for everybody in the congregation to associate with that person or not associate, a person who spreads divisive talk. They basically are saying, if you have a different idea about doctrines, then the individuals in the congregation will personally decide if they want to socialize with you for recreational purposes. And they will take this Watchtower with this fine print. They will go to any court and they'll say, look, we have it in print. The arrangement is changed. You can no longer throw at us the fact that we are somehow punishing people who have a different viewpoint. Will the reality be different? Of course it will be. No question about it. But here, something that has changed is this. If you are a PIMO, if you're physically in and mentally out, and they will catch you on saying anything that does not line up exactly with what the governing body says, you pull out this article. You take this article and you showed it to them, that it is a personal decision for every Christian to associate with you or not. It is not a sin to have a different opinion. It is not a sin even to spread divisive talk. It is considered maybe a bad association or somebody who has a disobedient spirit, but it's not a disfellowshipping offense. So they technically not supposed to remove you if you have a different opinion. This is huge. Record this, hold this Watchtower, and keep it handy just in case you will get caught, because it will be very useful. Now, some people might say, hey, Jack, nothing will really change because they will label you apostate. Okay, listen to me carefully. The thing is, they only label people apostates who are trying to get followers after themselves and actively trying to pull people out of the organization. That is their definition of an apostate. So now, with the change that they have made, you could potentially have your own opinion and you could say, I disagree with this doctrine. I disagree with what they're teaching here. You can mark me all you want, but it's not a disfellowshipping offense anymore. That is gigantic change, but that change was not for your benefit. That change was done for the lawyer to be able to win cases in courts so he can go and say, hey, we're giving people freedom of speech. We're giving people freedom of worship. They can walk away if they want to, and even if they don't walk away, they could spread divisive talk and we will not remove them. It is a personal decision of individuals in the congregation how they want to treat them. That, in my opinion, is a huge change. The majority of Jehovah's Witnesses will not know. They will never even read this article, and even if they read it, they will never conclude why this was written the way it is, because they've been programmed for so long. If anybody says anything different, if anybody spreads divisions in the congregation, they have to automatically be reported to the elders. Fine, I get it. But if you're a PIMO, hold on to this article because you could use it and say, please follow what this new light from the governing body is saying. Thanks for watching. If you have a different opinion, if you're thinking that I'm full of hot air and I'm reading way too much between the lines, please tell me. But I think this is why this was written, and I'm very curious how do you guys feel about this change. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.